From the Fox News Podcasts Network, the Fox News Rundown. A contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day. Going far beyond the headlines. Tapping into the massive reporting resources of Fox News to provide a full picture of the news of the day.
I'm Dana Perino.
I'm Brett Baer.
I'm Maria Bartiromo.
I'm Brian Kilmeade, and this is the Fox News Rundown.
Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey, this is Trey Gowdy, host of the Trey Gowdy Podcast. Every Tuesday, you'll hear what's on my mind. Plus, every Thursday, there's a special bonus episode where we answer the questions that are on your mind. Make sure to spend your Tuesdays and Thursdays with Trey. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts. Hope to see you.
America's listening to Fox News.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
The votes are in. It's currently 86 degrees on Monument Circle. I'm Wes Woodward, and here's what's trending at 5:03. It's a decision that surprised many Hoosiers. Delegates chose conservative pastor Micah Beckwith with Republican nominee for Indiana's lieutenant governor on Saturday. Sasha Nixon has more.
If you have been following the governor's race, you will know that Senator Mike Braun had indicated that he wanted State Representative Julie McGuire as his running mate. Former President Donald Trump even endorsed her recently. But Beckwith ultimately received about 51% of the votes, edging out his opponent. Some reports indicate that dozens of McGuire's delegates did not even show up at the convention, though it is not clear why. Sasha Nixon, 93, WIBC Mobile News.
A man has been arrested after a fatal shooting in Indianapolis 2 years ago. Harrison Silcox reports.
Dayon Mallory was found shot by police northeast of downtown Indianapolis in November a couple of years ago. He died after being moved to the hospital. IMPD detectives eventually labeled 31-year-old Dante Robinson as their suspect. It wasn't until June 10th of this year that murder charges were filed by the Marion County Prosecutor's Office. Robinson was then arrested Friday. IMPD reminds that he should be considered innocent until proven guilty. Harrison Silcox, 93, WIBC Mobile News.
Hosting the U.S. Olympic swim trials wasn't enough for the Indiana Sports Corp. Donnie Burgess reports on the initiative to save lives.
Olympic swimmers are not just idols for young athletes. They represent a sport that could save your life. Sarah Meyer with the Indiana Sports Corporation.
We made the goal of teaching 50,000 people to be swim or water safe by the end of 2024. And I say people because this is not just a youth problem. There are so many adults that don't know how to swim.
She tells WIBC's First Day this is also an opportunity to give people of color access to swim lessons that they may not have had the luxury of experiencing so far in life. Donnie Burgess, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
Here's your forecast from the American Standard Cooling Weather Center.
For today, mostly sunny skies, high temperatures in the mid-80s. Tonight, mostly clear skies remain, low temperatures in the low to mid-60s. I'm Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morse for 93 WIBC.
I'm Wes Woodward, on the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com.
If your loved one has stopped seeing friends because hearing loss prevents the use of the telephone, please help them by visiting RelayIndiana.com. RelayIndiana.com provides captioned telephones that allow the hard of hearing to have phone conversations through voice recognition technology. The other person's words appear on an easy-to-read screen. Help your loved one stay in touch with their family and friends by getting them the CapTel caption telephone from Relay Indiana. Learn more at RelayIndiana.com.
Prescription opioids can be addictive and dangerous.
Opioid pain medication took everything that I had. Nothing mattered more than getting my fix. I was on the verge of being homeless. My house was being foreclosed on. Knowing that it could have been prevented makes it worse. It just takes one.
Prescription opioids. It only takes a little to lose a lot. Visit cdc.gov/RxAwareness.
Don't stress about plumbing repairs. Call L.D. Smith for honest advice and a free second opinion on any estimate.
L.D. Smith Plumbing.
A dirty, stinking honest.
The Indianapolis Public Library. More than just books. Visit your local branch today.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment, and this is the Gun Guy.
Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. We're thrilled you're with us. Seems like just a minute ago I was here in the studio. I co-hosted with Jason Hammer yesterday on the Hammer and Nigel show. I do that often when one of the guys may be out. Had a blast. Also broke my own record in the Celebrity Beer Bong Challenge, I will have you know. More on that on Hammer and Nigel's Twitter page, or X page, I guess we're supposed to say. But anyway, had a lot of fun, had a good show. And then I went over, immediately after the show was over, and I actually spoke at a campaign event for the Micah Beckwith campaign. And Micah had an unusual campaign, at least historically unusual, historically different, in the sense that he was running for lieutenant governor. And it's a somewhat political tradition, historical tradition here in Indiana, that each candidate, Republican and Democrat, or independent, libertarian, whoever's running, they name their choice for lieutenant governor. Ultimately, though, it's up to the party delegates. In the Republican Party, is who we're talking about last night. It's up to the Republican delegates to actually vote for and choose the lieutenant governor candidate. And it's typically a rubber stamp of the governor's choice for lieutenant governor. And Micah here over a year ago, and listen, I go back a while with Micah. I met him, actually, we were both speaking at a Second Amendment event. I think the first one we were speaking at together was up in Madison County, if I recall, in Anderson, and then we both spoke at a Hamilton County event. And he's a guy who's passionate about Second Amendment issues. He's also a Christian constitutional conservative, and each of those groups, Christians and conservatives and constitutionalists, are all getting attacked pretty dramatically out there on a lot of different fronts. And those of us who support the Second Amendment, who support constitutional liberties generally, who support a strict interpretation of the Constitution, who support an interpretation of the Constitution whereby we agree it says what it says and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. And all those principles really have gotten lost to some degree. And so I really enjoyed meeting Micah here years ago. And when he became politically active, ran for Congress at one point, did well, beat all expectations. Ultimately did not win. I believe that was the seat that Victoria Sparks ultimately won, if I'm remembering correctly. But there were other people in that race with much more name recognition, more of a history in politics. And Micah, while not winning, dramatically exceeded expectations. And I think a lot of people in that moment really saw him as a rising star in conservative politics, Republican politics here in Indiana. Well, I spoke at his event last night, and I think I probably spoke in a way that not a lot of people expected. You know, when I show up at an event, you can pretty much expect I'm going to talk about Second Amendment issues. And in this case, there was plenty to talk about because, again, I have a history with Micah about him supporting Second Amendment rights in this state and in this country. And so I know where he stands on those issues. And in terms of the governor's office, you know, we've had a little bit of a love-hate relationship with the current administration. And listen, I've always liked Governor Holcomb. I got to know the First Lady, Janet Holcomb, shooting sporting clays. I've shot sporting clays many, many times with the First Lady. I've been privileged to go to the governor's residence and celebrate Janet's birthday. At the same time, we had sort of equivocal support from the governor's office, for instance, during constitutional carry. And listen, Governor Holcomb signed constitutional carry into law. And for all the heat that Eric Holcomb gets and has gotten in his term as governor, I always want to give credit where credit is due. I always want to be fair in my comments. And a lot of people did not expect him to sign constitutional carry. In fact, my personal prediction, which turned out to be wrong, was that he would allow it to go into effect, become law without his signature. A lot of people thought he was going to veto it. And it was logical to believe that he was going to veto the bill, or at least ignore it until it came law without his signature, because, you know, a member of his staff, of his cabinet, the superintendent of state police, Doug Carter, had been our most vocal opponent for constitutional carry. And listen, I as I say often, I've said it here on my show, I've said it on Hammer and Nigel, I like Doug Carter. I consider myself a friend of Doug Carter. I think he has done an excellent job as superintendent of state police, but we just could not have more emphatically disagreed on constitutional carry. And we'd go to these hearings and testify, and I'd see him beforehand and shake his hand. We'd even do a little brief man hug, and you know, we'd make small talk, and then we would each testify and basically call each other everything but honest in our testimony. You know, whoever went first, the next one would stand up and go, well, none of what he just said is correct, and let me just tell you what the truth really is. I mean, and it was fairly heated because he was passionate about opposing constitutional carry, and obviously I was passionate in supporting it. But having said that, I mean, we really were concerned about Governor Holcomb's office because it was hard to believe, and I do not know. I don't know what those internal communications were within the governor's office, and, you know, during his cabinet or his staff meetings. I don't know. I can only speculate, and speculation on the radio is probably never a good idea. At the same time, it was hard to believe that the superintendent of state police could be out being such a vocal opponent to constitutional carry without the permission, if not the support, if not the direction of his boss, who is the governor. And that may be unfair because maybe they never even talked about it. Maybe Superintendent Carter was free to speak his own mind, and none of that was at the direction of the governor. And so, you know, full caveat, full disclaimer, this may be unsupported speculation. At the same time, none of us felt very secure. And that was greatly exacerbated by the fact that while the bill was pending, and even after it passed in both houses of the Indiana General Assembly, all of our efforts, and this is my personal efforts, I reached out to the governor's office, and we went by there in person and said, I'd really like to talk to the governor about this pending bill. We had others. We had the good friend Charlie Hill-Tunin, president in Indiana Rifle and Pistol Association, reach out. A lot of us were you know, who have a history and a relationship, and we got nothing. We got silence. So I go through that to say that the idea of a really steadfast, a really committed supporter of Second Amendment rights as lieutenant governor, and listen, does lieutenant governor decide whether to veto bills or not? No. But the idea of having a lieutenant governor who is as committed to Second Amendment rights as Micah Beckwith is, and listen, no negatives for me against Julie McGuire. I don't know Julie McGuire very well. I have met her in the Indiana General Assembly. I heard nothing. I mean, you know, all the backbiting and the snippy comments and all the ridiculousness that happens, you know, on social media and elsewhere during an election campaign, I've largely ignored because everything I know about Julie McGuire is she is a fine conservative and was a solid representative, and I have no reason to think she wouldn't have been made a fine lieutenant governor. So you're not going to hear any criticism on those points from me. But I was excited about Micah becoming lieutenant governor simply because he is such a solid supporter of Second Amendment rights, and because, again, he's a true conservative and a true constitutionalist. And on the point of him being a Christian, there have been attacks on him, calling him a Christian nationalist. And people use that term like it's a negative. Like saying, oh, you're a MAGA crazy. Well, let's talk about that one. Make America great again? I'm supposed to be embarrassed? I'm supposed to be humiliated? I'm going to feel criticized because I want to make America great again? Does that make any sense to you? Christian nationalists. I mean, yes, a lot of us are Christians. My dad retired in his late 80s as a Methodist pastor. I was brought up that way. Am I going to apologize for my faith? Oh, hell no. And I don't expect anybody else to apologize for their faith either. And nationalist, what's nationalist? What make America great again kind of sounds like nationalism. America first as a policy kind of sounds like nationalism. Is that a problem? Should we be criticized for that? Now there are references, there are cross references. There are despicable groups that have gone out there and labeled themselves as nationalists. And if some people think there's guilt by association, then I roll my eyes at that, because we're talking about two very different things. And some hateful group, some group you'd never want to be associated with, just because they adopt some terminology doesn't mean that the rest of us have to abandon it. And people ought to be smart enough and intellectually honest enough to be able to distinguish those things. But at any rate, Micah today at the Indiana GOP convention won by a pretty good margin. And you heard it, the WIBC newsroom talking about this. And so congratulations to Micah Beckwith. It looks like we're going to have a very strong 2A supporter as lieutenant governor. Look forward to working with him in that capacity as we continue to work on Second Amendment rights, both the protection of and advancement of Second Amendment rights in Indiana. And big heartfelt congratulations. It was fun to speak at his event last night. And I talked a little bit, speaking of being a Christian, about quote-unquote separation of church and state. And what the founders, in my mind, and my very firm belief, and the result of the historical research I've done, what the founders really meant by the Establishment Clause in the First Amendment, which does not contain the words separation of church and state. It says there shall be no law providing an establishment of religion. There should be no state religion, so no national religion, meaning members of other religions should never be penalized because of the faith that they practice. That's why the Free Exercise Clause comes right after the Establishment Clause. Does that really mean separation, quote unquote, of church and state? That's what the Supreme Court and I go off in dramatically different directions. But that's what I talked about. That's not really germane to the Gun Guy Show. If anybody's interested in that, give us a call or send me a message on Facebook. I'll go through what I believe the founders really intended by that term. But in the meantime, there's a whole hell of a lot more to talk about. Hunter Biden, son of the president, convicted of 3 gun charges. The Supreme Court has thrown out the bump stock ban, and the pistol brace ban, quote unquote, the ATF's final rule on pistol braces was just invalidated. In fact, vacated is the word. I can go into what that means on pistol braces by a district court judge in Texas. So we had a big damn week on Second Amendment issues, and I'll go into all those things and take your calls. I want to take your calls throughout the show, 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
However you're getting around these days.
So when you buy an electric vehicle, you go all the way across America on a single tank of gas.
Oh, wait, what?
You plug it in.
Plug in. Mornings and afternoons for Matt Bear traffic.
To be on time.
Eastbound 465 from Keystone Avenue.
That's what this will do that.
Fuel up on the latest information.
Closure of Allisonville Road to eastbound 4.
We never run out of juice.
It'll help getting around.
On 93 WIBC.
Guy Relford for Indiana Gun Club. You know, Indiana Gun Club is Indiana's premier shotgun club. It's where I learned to shoot sporting clays not so long ago, probably 5-6 years ago, was the first time I'd ever shot sporting clays. Fabulous sport. We call it golf with shotguns. If you don't know what that means, go out and check out Indiana Gun Club, located in Fortville, really in the Geist area, out on 113th Street, only a couple of miles from Geist. It's a beautiful facility. They've got a huge facility. They've got 150 acres. They've got camp facilities available. They can cater your event. You want to have a fundraiser for your political organization or your charitable organization. You want to have a corporate team building exercise. You want to cater in a meal. They can handle all those things right there. I've had some of the most fabulous catered meals out there because my friend Gordon Gamilla is the events coordinator out there and is a trained chef as well. You can get all that at Indiana Gun Club. They're also coming up in August. They're going to have their Pheasants Forever fundraiser. And listen, we all know that hunters are some of the great conservationists out there, protecting the habitat and the life of the animals that they cherish. And Pheasants Forever is exactly such a group. They're having their fundraiser at Indiana Gun Club. You can check out all those details at indianagunclub.com. That's indianagunclub.com.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin. Hey, good morning. You're heading to the airport, right?
Yep, thanks for checking. I like the car. How long have you been a rideshare driver?
About 3 years now. I really enjoy it.
Isn't it hard to make money these days with the price of gas being so high?
Not for me. I use Upside, the free app that gives you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get real money back when you get gas with the Upside app?
Yep, I get real cash back every time I get gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
I'll make around $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code GEAR for an extra 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code GEAR for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code GEAR.
We all have people in our lives we interact with. Maybe it's your favorite barista, a neighbor who waves to you every morning, a coworker you grab lunch with, or maybe it's me, the hairstylist you've gone to for years. What if you learned I had a substance use disorder? Would it change how you see me? It's okay to see the addiction, but when you choose to see the person, not just their disease, it can help change someone's life. Learn more at seebeyondtheaddiction.org.
JMV here. Father's Day is Sunday. Miss M's Home and Garden has great items for you or dad. And listen to what you can save while shopping. Herbaceous perennials are 20% off. Pottery, fountains, statues, and houseplants, 30% off. Select gift shop decor is 20 to 50% off. And get this, Japanese maples in stock are 50% off. Dad will thank you for getting him great items that will last for years to come. Miss M's Home and Garden, State Road 135 south of Whiteland Road in Bargersville.
Your home is your sanctuary. Get the peace of mind you deserve with a free estimate on a Generac automatic standby generator for your home from Generator Supercenter, the nation's #1 Generac generator dealer. With expert installation and 24-hour monitoring, Generator Supercenter won't leave you in the dark. Financing is available. Take control of your power today with Generator Supercenter. Call 317-827-0808. Generator Supercenter of Indianapolis, 317-827-0808.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the third time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
Are you a victim of the timeshare trap and think there's no way out? I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, the original timeshare cancellation expert. And I'm here to tell you that there is a way out. All you need to do is give my office a call. I will send you a timeshare exit information kit absolutely free, explaining how the timeshare industry works and your options for cancellation.
Call now for your free info kit. 800-961-5544. 800-961-5544.
Housing discrimination because of race, color, or national origin is against the law. If you believe you've experienced housing discrimination, contact HUD at hud.gov/fairhousing.
Indy Humane. Find your new best friend today. Visit indyhumane.org.
Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So, Hunter Biden, son of the president, convicted on 3 felony gun charges. What is this about? What does it mean? What could he face in terms of potential prison sentences? We'll get into all those things. And we'll continue to take your calls as well. But in the meantime, Ed has called in. And let's go to the phone lines, not keep Ed waiting too long. Ed, welcome to the Gun Guy Show.
Yes, Guy. Pleasure to speak with you. I have a question and a comment.
Uh-huh.
If a person is carrying concealed, say, within a library, that library is 500 feet away from an elementary school, is that distance prohibition still applicable as far as schools are concerned, where you're not supposed to be carrying within 1,000 feet?
Well, there's 2 different laws you need to be concerned about, and one's the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act, and the other one is the Indiana statute that prohibits firearms on school property. So the first question, and Ed, maybe you know the answer to this. First question is, who owns the library? Is it a municipal library owned by the city, or is it owned by the school corporation?
It is municipal.
Okay. Well, it's very important because school property is defined as any property, whether there's a school in it or not, that's owned by the school corporation. So, for instance, I defended a case where a gentleman had a gun at a school board meeting in the Carmel Clay Administration Building. There's no classroom in there. There are no students that get caught in there, or get taught is the word I meant to use. But it's still school property because it's owned by the school corporation. So, okay, so it's a municipal library. Two different statutes you need to be concerned about, as I mentioned. The first one's the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act. And that actually has a 1,000-foot parameter in it, where it says you can't possess a gun in a school zone, and a school zone under the federal statute. And again, here in Indiana, we have to comply with both. We have to comply with state law. We have to comply with federal law. Under the federal law, you can't possess a gun in a school zone, and a school zone is defined as school property or anywhere within 1,000 feet of school property. 1,000. So you're starting off saying, okay, well, within 500 feet, boom, you're subject to the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act. However, there are big exceptions to the federal act, and many of these don't exist as exceptions to the Indiana Act. That's why we've got to worry about both. But under the federal act, if you are licensed by the state in which the school is located to carry a firearm, then you're not subject to arrest or prosecution for violation of the federal law. So if you have an Indiana license to carry a handgun, and you're carrying your handgun and you're within 1,000 feet of school property, you're good to go under the federal statute. And that's even, by the way, why in the constitutional carry statute, and we were putting that together and I helped draft it, is we made it very clear that if you have a license to carry a handgun issued in Indiana, issued before or after we passed constitutional carry, because licenses still remain available, that you continue to be licensed to carry a gun within the state. And a lot of people saw that terminology in the bill before it passed and said, well, why do you put that in there? We're passing constitutional carry. If it passes, you don't need a license anymore. So why do you put this redundant, superfluous comment in there that you remain licensed if you have a license to carry? And we said Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act. By the way, another little tidbit, you also need a handgun license if you want to carry a handgun in a state park. Because when we passed constitutional carry, the DNR did not want to change its regulation that says you can't have a gun in a state park unless it's a handgun and you have a license to carry a handgun. But back to the school property and Ed's question. So if you have a license to carry, you're good under the federal statute. If it's not actually school property itself, you're also good under the state statute because it only applies to actual school property, that's the property itself owned by the school corporation or the private or parochial school, or a school bus. So that answers Ed's question. And that actually takes us a little bit before the bottom of the hour, so it's a good time to take a break. It was a fabulous question from Ed. You have more questions, give us a call, 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
7 teenagers involved in a crash slammed into a home. Strong storms were moving through the area.
93 WIBC.
The right to use an abortion pill protected by the Supreme Court.
No legal standing to challenge the Food and Drug Administration.
Another news update is minutes away.
We do have a double standard, and our system of justice is broken.
IU Health
eliminating non-compete clauses for physicians practicing primary care.
93 WIBC Mobile News.
Hey guys, it's Rob from my friends at Universal Windows Direct. Spring is here and it's only going to get hotter. Call my guys at Universal Windows Direct. At Universal Windows Direct, their super spacer technology makes their windows last up to 5 times longer than other Windows systems. So your windows from Universal Windows Direct perform better and last longer. Plus, Universal Windows Direct backs it up with a true 20-year warranty. And listen to this deal going on with Universal Windows Direct. Call today at 317-659-7574, and for every 2 windows you buy, you get the next 2 free. Buy 2, get 2. Buy 4, get 4. Buy 20, get 20. There's no limit. Plus, what a deal, 0% financing for 60 months. That's right, 0% financing for 60 months. Restrictions apply. For the last windows you'll ever need, go to UWD.com, UWD.com, UWD.com.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through HIMS, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
Nobody cares for you like family. Family Heating and Air.
Maintenance is going to drastically increase the efficiency and performance of your system. It's also going to significantly improve the longevity of it. People think that they are saving money by skipping their maintenance, and in reality, they're just shaving years off the life and increasing the consumption of that unit, spending a lot more in the long term.
Get your tune-up today at Family Heating and Air, your trusted local independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
I'm Roger Stern. 8 Israeli soldiers died today in southern Gaza, an explosion destroying their armored vehicle.
It's not clear if it was a bomb planted ahead of time or if Hamas operatives had approached the vehicle with an explosive device. The military was also investigating the possibility that explosives stored on the outside of the vehicle contributed to the blast.
Fox's Griff Jenkins. The Justice Department will not prosecute Attorney General Merrick Garland for his refusal to honor a House subpoena. Fox's Madeline Rivera has that.
This comes after the House voted nearly along party lines to hold Garland in contempt of Congress for refusing to hand over the audio recordings of President Biden's interview with Special Counsel Robert Hur in his classified documents case.
America is listening to Fox News.
Do you have an idea for a book, fiction, nonfiction, or a children's book? We can help you put it together and bring it to market at Dorrance Publishing. We have thousands of testimonials from people just like you that we've helped get their books sold in stores and online. We've even got a service called The Writer's Coach. It's perfect for people that have a book idea in their head and they just need someone to help them put it on paper. Dorrance Book Publishing has been helping people just like you who have a book idea, written or not, for over 100 years. Imagine being counted among the most famous authors in the world with your very own book. Call right now and let us help you turn a book idea into reality. It's easier than you think. You just need a little help. Call us now.
800-879-4098. 800-879-4098.
800-879-4098. That's 800-879-4098.
Get out fast, get cash, sell your home in a flash. The IndyHomebuyer.com. No inspection, no fuss. We only need to see it once. The IndyHomebuyer.com. Problem properties, tenants don't pay. Just hand us some keys and your problems go away. Get out fast, get cash, sell your home in a flash. The IndyHomebuyer.com. Get out fast, get cash, sell your home in a flash. The IndyHomebuyer.com.
No matter your reason for selling, TheIndyHomebuyer.com will pay cash for your house in any condition. If you're dealing with deadbeat tenants, big repairs, or inheritance, TheIndyHomebuyer.com is the solution. No hassle, no inspections. TheIndyHomebuyer.com.
Get out fast, get cash, sell your home in a flash. The IndyHomebuyer.com. Get out fast, get cash, sell your home in a flash. The IndyHomebuyer.com.
The show about gun rights, gun safety, and responsible gun ownership. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So Hunter Biden, president of our beloved president, son, I should say, of our beloved president, convicted on 3 gun charges. These are felonies, federal felonies. So what are the charges? And what do we need to know about this? Because I talk about these issues often in my Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class that you hear me pitching here often on the show. And the 3 charges he was convicted of, it all really relates to the same thing, which is that people who are a user of or addicted to illegal drugs are not allowed under federal law to possess firearms. And this is all under the National Firearms Act of 1968, which has been amended several times. It's been amended in the Firearm Owners Protection Act 1986. It was amended in the Brady Bill, a lot of people like to call it, 1994. The Lautenberg Amendment after that. So it's been amended several times, but this is basically the Gun Control Act. And it says, among other things, that certain classifications of people cannot possess firearms. And it's an expansive list. It includes, for instance, people with felony convictions. Now, it doesn't say felony conviction. It says a crime for which you could be punished with a sentence of over a year. So punishable by over 1 year. And that's how most states define a felony. It says if you've been adjudicated to be, quote unquote, mentally defective, which is an odd term, a little bit I could easily be convinced that's an offensive term. But if you've been committed against your will because you're a danger to yourself or others, for instance. And there are a whole lot of other prohibitors. If you have even a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence, you can't possess a firearm. If you're under a domestic violence order of protection, you can't possess a firearm. And so there are it's a long list, and I go through that list often, both in teaching this class that I mentioned, Essentials of Indiana Gun Law, but also because here's a call I get all the time. I mean, I get this several times a week. Somebody calls my office and says, I was denied a license to carry, or I was denied a gun purchase, and I have no idea why. It makes no sense because I don't have any felony convictions. I'll say, all right. Do you have anything on your record? Well, yeah, I had the misdemeanor battery from 10 years ago. All right, who was the victim? A lot of times people will push back on me. They'll say, well, why does that matter? Because it matters. Because if it's a crime of domestic violence, not just the specific crime of domestic battery, but any crime of domestic violence, I should say, then you're prohibited from possessing a firearm. And crime of domestic violence has a broad definition under both state and federal law. But I'll start going through the list. And one of the prohibitors that exists out there in the Gun Control Act, as amended, is you can't possess a firearm if you're addicted to or a user of illegal drugs. And that's illegal at the federal level. That's why if you go in and buy a gun, if you've bought one in the last 2 or 3 years, you'll notice that now on the form that you fill out when you're buying the gun, it asks you a series of questions. And one of them is, are you a user of or addicted to illegal drugs? And then it'll say, this includes marijuana in those states that have legalized marijuana. And you're like, hold on, if it's been legalized in my state, why do I have to worry about it being illegal under this law or as applied to this form? Well, that's because marijuana remains a prohibited drug, a controlled substance, under the terminology of the Controlled Substances Act in 1970, which is a federal statute. And it defines what drugs are illegal under federal law. And not only is marijuana still illegal under federal law, it's in the top tier. I think they call it Schedule 1. It's right up there with methamphetamine and coke, which, as ridiculous as that is, as being the most harmful, the most addictive, and with the least medicinal benefits. As ridiculous as that is, as applied to marijuana. Listen, I'm not a marijuana user. I learned a long time ago marijuana and I don't get along. So it's not a hot button issue for me personally, but it is for an awful lot of people I know and a lot of people I respect, and a lot of people, for instance, are veterans who feel like they can get some relief. But the point is that any drug that's illegal, and as applied to Hunter Biden, yep, cocaine, crack cocaine is in fact illegal. All 3 charges that he was convicted under relate to his addiction and use of illegal drugs, in particular crack cocaine. And listen, the guy came out and wrote a book. He wrote a memoir and talked about the time frame where he was severely addicted to crack cocaine. And then he went out and did a bunch of media interviews. And then he recorded an audio book of his memoir. So the jury in the case actually got to hear his own voice talking about how severely addicted he was for long periods of time, and talked about how he would buy his drugs, how he would go hang out at a 7-Eleven at ridiculous times of night in seedy neighborhoods waiting for his drug dealer to show up and sell him some drugs. So what happened, and I believe the date is off the top of my head, I haven't looked at it since earlier in the week. I think it was October 12th, 2018. But he went in and for whatever reason decided to buy a gun. And he was filling out the 4473 like any of us do when we're buying a gun. And he came to the question, are you a user of or addicted to illegal drugs? And he checked no. And he had no criminal history at the time, so he passed his background check. And he walked out with his gun. It was a revolver. He only possessed the gun for 11 days. And then his, girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, ex-sister-in-law, woman who used to be married to his brother Bo, who died, she found the gun in his car, evidently, and was concerned about his safety, her children's safety, and threw it in a dumpster. And then she goes back, tries to find it, because she told Hunter that she'd done this, and he went crazy, and he got to go get it, and he went back. She talked to the business owner, and ended up locating the guy who'd found it in the dumpster. So how do you get 3 federal charges out of that? Well, lying on the form is a federal felony. So if you have a felony conviction, again, crime punishable by over 1 year, and you say you don't, check the box that says no, and you should have checked the box that said yes, that's a felony. If you're a user of or addicted to illegal drugs and you say, no, I'm not, that's a federal felony, 10 years. So where do the other 2 charges come from? Well, the exact same act of checking the no box on that form is also a crime called providing false information to a federal firearms licensee in documentation that the federal firearms licensee is required to keep under federal law. So the exact same act of check and no, well, that federal firearms licensee, which is just a gun shop, the gun shop's required to keep those 4473s. So providing false information in documentation that under law, that gun shop has to keep on record is a separate crime, even though it's the exact same act of checking no, and you should have checked yes. And then lastly, it's illegal to lie on the form. It's also illegal to possess a firearm if you're a prohibited possessor. And being in the class of people who was a user of or addicted to illegal drugs, you're in that class of people who cannot possess a firearm. So the act of taking possession of the gun and walking out of the gun store with it, and then having it in your possession for the next 11 days is all a separate crime. So those are the 3 counts. The lying on the form is good for 10 years in prison. Possession of the gun while you're a prohibited possessor is good for 10 years. And lying on documentation required to be kept by the federal firearms licensee is good for 5. So he's potentially looking at 25 years in prison. Is that remotely realistic that he'll see that much jail time or even any jail time? Not necessarily. And what are his issues on appeal? Because let me tell you, he's got some interesting issues to raise on appeal. In fact, those of us who fight in the Second Amendment area and fight for Second Amendment rights might boggle your mind a little bit, may just agree with Hunter Biden on the issues that he's likely to raise on appeal. I'll go into all those issues, and if anybody calls, I'll take your calls as well here in the next segment. Right now, we're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Tony Katz.
Do they still do mail in Carmel?
Carmel, don't ever change.
I love the living statues that sit on the benches. They're awesome.
Yes, that's how people from Greenwood earn extra money. Oh, I'm going to get emails. What have I done? You know everybody here is just in debt and house poor up to their ass. Don't you laugh, Zionsville. You have it worse. $1.13 trillion of credit card debt. Half of that is on the west side of Carmel.
Tony Katz, mornings 6 to 9 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. Our most popular class is our Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class, and we've got one of those coming up Saturday, August 17th. It's going to be at Indy Arms. They're on the northeast side of Indy, 2550 East 55th Street. They've got a beautiful indoor range and a nice, big, comfortable classroom. That's where we teach Essentials of Indiana Gun Law. It's going to be from 9 a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. There on August 17th. It's 4.5 to 5 hours, the most important legal information that you need as an Indiana gun owner. Detailed discussion of the law of self-defense, when you can and cannot use force, including deadly force in self-defense. How do you avoid commonly prosecuted crimes like pointing a firearm or intimidation with a deadly weapon or criminal recklessness with a deadly weapon? All that and a whole heck of a lot more there during Essentials of Indiana Gun Law. You can sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
From marshmallow festivals to fireworks on the shore, no matter where you're headed this summer, Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles. During Hubler's Freedom to Drive, shop any of our 12 locations and choose from Chevys, Fords, GMCs, Buicks, Nissans, Acuras, Mazdas, Hondas, and many more. Over 2,000 vehicles. All makes, all models, certified vehicles, luxury vehicles, even the hard-to-find ones. Plus, every Hubler Q-certified vehicle is covered by a 128-point vehicle inspection and a free Carfax history report.
'Cause Hubler's got you covered.
No matter where you're headed this summer, Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles. During our Freedom to Drive, visit drivehubler.com or any of our 12 locations.
Cover me!
Warranty on select models less than 9 years old.
A house or business fire is something you never want to think of. But should it happen, think fast. Think Michaelis. Over 35 years of rebuilding lives and spirits at the same time. No one comes more respected or as fast. Trust the ones the insurance companies trust. Water, storms, fire, and wet basements. Life happens. Michaelis happens to help you through it. Call 844-FIX-CINDY. Make it Michaelis.
If you've ever put off dealing with plumbing problems, you don't have to live that way. Maybe you tried to fix a leaky faucet yourself, or you're wishing that slow drain is going to magically start flowing again. Well, it's not. Stop putting things off and call Lance and his local team at LD Smith Plumbing. They'll give you honest advice at a fair price, and they leave your home even better than they found it. That's ldsmithplumbing.com. And tell them your second favorite plumber in the whole world, Denny Smith, sent you. ldsmithplumbing.com.
Are you a victim of the timeshare trap and think there's no way out? I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, the original timeshare cancellation expert. And I'm here to tell you that there is a way out. All you need to do is give my office a call. I will send you a timeshare exit information kit absolutely free, explaining how the timeshare industry works and your options for cancellation.
Call now for your free info kit. 800-961-5544. 800-961-5544.
Hello, this is Don Steffi, Executive Director for the Indianapolis Ballet, and I want to personally thank everyone who made this past season such a wonderful success. Whether single-ticket buyers, subscribers, donors, volunteers, or corporate and foundation supporters, a sincere thank you is extended to you all from our board, staff, and dancers. Let's have another dance together next year, shall we? As we present a new season of great performances by your Indianapolis Ballet. Thank you.
Never miss your favorite shows on WIBC. Get your content to go. Tony Katz, Kendall and Casey, Hammer and Nigel, Tony Kennett, The Gun Guy, Home and Garden. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Your rights, your responsibilities, your guns. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So Hunter Biden convicted on 3 charges because the jury found he was a user of or addicted to illegal drugs and lied when he said he wasn't, and then possessed a gun when he was legally prohibited from possessing a gun for the same reason. So what issue does he have on appeal? This is really fascinating to me because I don't know if this is just happenstantial or whether it was really, I think, a smart strategy by his defense team. Because by all appearances, the prosecution just kicked the defense's butt in this trial. I mean, the defense tried to say, oh, well, he had gone to rehab, he wasn't really using drugs, and that completely fell apart. Tried to say he was living with a sober partner, and therefore he had stopped using drugs himself, and that completely fell apart. I mean, just a lot of what the defense lawyers said they were going to prove at trial just never happened. But they may have been the smartest ones in the room all along. We don't know. We'll see on what happens on appeal, because here's what happened. First of all, there was a dispute leading up to the trial as to whether or not, and this is in the fight over jury instructions, whether or not the prosecution had to prove that Hunter was actually addicted to drugs and using drugs and actually high on drugs on the day he bought the gun, and specifically during the 11 days he possessed the gun. And on the lying on the form, which related to 2 of the charges, that would have to be he was using drugs on that day, and specifically addicted on that day. And the judge said, no, they don't have to prove intoxication on illegal drugs or addiction as of that day, just in that general time frame. And that was a huge benefit to the prosecution because they had ample evidence in this time frame. I mean, from Hunter himself, his own words, from his own lips, in his audiobook, from a lot of people who came and went, from where he lived. And so the general time frame business greatly enhanced the prosecution's ability to get a guilty verdict at trial. But here's the issue. Under the new test, and I'll go more into this after the break, under the new test defined by the Supreme Court on what gun laws, what gun control laws are constitutional and what are not, on appeal, the prosecution is going to have to prove that there's been historical precedent, there are historical analogs going back to the time of the founding, during the ratification of the Second Amendment in 1791, and also the ratification of the 14th Amendment, which made the Second Amendment applicable to the states, that this country has a history and tradition of not just saying people addicted or high on drugs can't possess firearms, but people generally in a time frame over time can't possess firearms. If I said drugs, I meant firearms. That's a big difference. I'll clarify that and go into more detail after this break. Right now, we're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Gilbert worked in retail and restaurant management for 14 years. It was time for a change.
I recognized where I was at was vulnerable to the whims of the economy.
Then he heard about My Computer Career. Gilbert went for it.
In as little as 7 months, I got all of my certifications at a fraction of a cost for college.
He became an IT pro in just months with zero experience at mycomputercareer.edu.
I can work from anywhere. I have more time for my family as well.
It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu.
This is one student's experience. Individual results vary.
Community Health Network cares for your heart health. From heart scans and vascular screenings to complex heart procedures, you can count on our expert team for the highest quality cardiovascular care, when and where you need it. Your path to a healthy heart starts with knowing your risk. Schedule a heart scan or vascular screening today. Visit ecommunity.com/heart. Community Health Network. Exceptional care. Simply delivered.
Tony Katz here for Premier Arms in Brownsburg, your premier gun store. Over 1,200 firearms in stock and the largest selection of used firearms in the area. Premier Arms is home of the Buy Room. This exclusive, private, and secure room is where Premier Arms will buy your estate or special collection of firearms and jewelry. Premier Arms and PA Jewelers, their one-of-a-kind jewelry store located in the same building, are the largest buyers of firearms, firearm collections, and estate jewelry in the Midwest. Talk to Premier Arms today. 3754 South Green Street. Online at premierarms.com.
Go with your gut. Your dog's immune system is based in the gut. A diet lacking in nutrients can cause itching, scratching, and a weak immune system. However, there is a solution. DINOVITE. Dinovite.
It took a grand total of 2 weeks. The dog stopped itching, the hair stopped falling out.
Try Dinovite for free. Just pay shipping and handling. Learn more at dinovite.com/radio.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dinovite.
That's the sound of steak searing in its juices on your new pellet grill. You heard that right. The Weber Searwood Pellet Grill can smoke low and slow at 180 degrees all the way to a high heat sear at 600. With the Weber Searwood, you can cook on the direct flame over the full grate sear zone. You'll hear the gasp of amazement from friends and family when you serve the food. Cooking with the Weber Searwood Pellet Grill just sounds delicious and tastes even better.
Hey, Pat Sullivan here, letting you know that when you need plumbing help, call who I call, my friends at Hope Plumbing. Not only are they their experts in their field who respect the true value of customer service, they also love giving back to this community, which is evident in their referral program. If you refer a friend, Hope Plumbing will give you a $50 gift card to a local restaurant. Great plumbing and supporting local restaurants. What more could you ask for? Visit hopeplumbing.com or give them a call at 641-HOPE.
Broadcasting from the Technology Recycler Studios, this is Indy's Mobile News, 93 WIBC. WIBC HD1 Indianapolis. The news starts now.
Hey, honey, take your blood pressure medication.
Thanks, dear.
Daddy, are you going to the hospital again?
No, son. Bad medication from a dishonest website got me sick. Now we only use sites approved by NABP or that end in .pharmacy, so we know they're safe.
Learn more about the new .pharmacy domain and ordering medications safely online at safe.pharmacy, a public service from the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy.
We're here early before they wake up. We stay late, we stay informed, we invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
We do this not because it's our job, but because this is about our veterans' lives. This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans.
Parents, teachers, school board members, do you want your school to experience the richness of academic freedom or the constraints of a one-size-fits-all federal mandate called Common Core Standards? Advocates for Academic Freedom is for educational excellence and local control of your school. Come join the fight for your children's education. You can contact us at advocatesforacademicfreedom.org or call 1-715-234-5072.
When you're high, you feel different. But if you feel different, you drive different. So don't drive high. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
One blood donation can help save the lives of up to 3 people. Give blood through the American Red Cross to help hospital patients. Visit redcrossblood.org today.
We all play a role in keeping our community safe.
Every day, we move in and out of each other's busy lives.
It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good, others not so much.
But that's life.
It's when something doesn't seem quite right
that it's time to pay attention.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
My grades were bad. I would get D's and C's.
I appeared to be doing good at my school life, but if you would see me at home, it would have been a completely different story.
I mean, it was just rough focusing on school when your mother is somebody you have to take care of. It got worse and worse and worse throughout the years.
There are students who need somebody.
They can trust someone, and it could be the first person they've ever trusted in their life.
Communities in Schools is lowering America's dropout rate by helping more than 1.3 million kids every year get whatever they need to succeed in school.
If something was going on at home, we would go just stop by Miss Liberty's office and talk to her.
Communities in Schools vouched for me when everyone else had lost hope.
You can help change the picture of education right here in your community and across the nation. Visit communitiesInschools.org.
I hear people say we can't save every kid, but I think that we can.
When you're high, you feel different. But if you feel different, you drive different. So don't drive high. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
It takes everyone in the community working together to create a brighter future. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Visit liveunited.org to learn how you can help.
I'm Sherry Shepard. You probably know me best as a co-host on The View. More importantly, I'm a mom. If you're pregnant or a new mom, you can get timely expert information to help keep your baby healthy, something every mother wants. Through a free service called Text for Baby, women get health tips sent directly to their cell phones to help them care for their babies through the first year. Just text BABY, B-A-B-Y, to 511-411. That's BABY, B-A-B-Y, to 511-411 for the health of your baby.
When was the last time you practiced your home fire escape plan? Be sure everyone in your family knows what to do if there's a fire. Get out, stay out. It's your fire safe response.
911, what's your emergency? I will get someone to speak with you. Please stay on the line.
Hola, tenemos su ubicación. Ayuda está en camino.
Getting past a language barrier is critical when first responders help Hoosiers. That's why the State 911 Board provides special tools for non-English speaking citizens to communicate with emergency services.
Si estás en peligro, aunque no hables inglés, podrás recibir ayuda en una emergencia rápidamente.
All Indiana 911 centers began offering translation services in over 240 languages in 2019. Now, people can send text messages for help in their native language to 911 and receive a translated text back from the dispatcher. It's of great help to the deaf and speech impaired and to those in select dangerous situations.
Cuando llame o envíe un texto al 911, un servicio de traducción se asegurará que entiendan lo que está diciendo.
For more information, visit in911.net.
Gracias.
911. Before you text, voice is best.
Hammer and Nigel here, inviting you to join us as we kick off the weekend every Friday around 5:45 with Beer Sample Friday, brought to you by our friends at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus.
Through their service, veterans have our backs. Now we should have theirs. Learn more at GotYour6.org.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment, and this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom.
Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. We're glad to have you for hour two. And before we get back into the Hunter case, let's go to the phone lines. And David has called in. David, you got a question?
Yeah, Guy. Thanks for taking a call. I got a couple questions, and maybe you can expound on both or one or however you see fit. But one of them's FRTs. So I've been looking a lot here lately, and it looks to me like that those are not being controlled anymore by the ATF.
Yeah, and David, just for people who don't know what FRT stands for, we're talking about forced reset triggers. And I'm sorry, was that your only question? Or did you have something else too?
I have one more, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, on the question of suppressors, is it possible for that Bruin decision, through the historical analysis or whatever it is, would impact having to pay that tax stamp for that suppressor? And those were my two questions, so thank you.
Oh, sure, David. Well, thanks for calling. Well, first of all, if people don't know what a forced reset trigger is, without going too much into the weeds, it essentially it's another accessory that allows you to operate a firearm, typically a rifle, very, very quickly. In other words, as you pull the trigger, forced reset is just what it sounds like. The trigger will reset much quicker than what you might ever experience on a typical trigger on a firearm, and it's not dissimilar from what we call a binary trigger, which is where you pull the trigger back and the gun goes off, and then you release the trigger forward and the gun goes off again as you release the trigger. And both of those have gotten some scrutiny. The forced reset trigger got a lot of scrutiny. In fact, there was one office of the ATF, I want to say it was Miami or Tampa or somewhere, it was somewhere in Florida, issued a letter that said forced reset triggers are illegal. And there was one particular manufacturer of these that had put a lot of them out, and a lot of people had bought them. I had good friends of mine calling me in a panic because this letter from one ATF office was circulating around through the internet saying that the ATF was saying that forced reset triggers are illegal because they put one in your gun, you're making it a machine gun. Well, that person, who was a FFL, good friend of mine, when I first heard about it, we put a call in to the local ATF office in Indianapolis, and they had no idea what we were talking about. Had never heard of this letter coming out of some other local ATF office, and there's never been any kind of formal rulemaking or anything like that. The ATF was clearly threatening some people, and I've even heard of people getting some letters saying if you have one of these, you show up on sales records. They actually, if I remember correctly, this goes back, I think, a year or plus. I think the ATF even served some subpoenas on the manufacturer, if not a search warrant, and was looking for customer lists and whatnot to go out and find the people that had these, because they were reserving the opportunity to say they were illegal. But this bump stock decision actually really dramatically helps anybody with an FRT, a forced reset trigger, and again, a binary trigger, kind of somewhat less of an issue, because any attempt to make forced reset triggers illegal, just like the bump stock ban, which I'll get into here more in just a second, just like the bump stock ban, which was overturned by the Supreme Court just yesterday. That decision from the Supreme Court, which I'll get more into, as I said, it says that, just kind of being sort of like a machine gun, or being able to operate even with a rate of fire similar to a machine gun, doesn't make a gun a machine gun. And I'm gonna stop the answer to the question there, because I'm gonna get more into the Supreme Court's decision that invalidated and set aside the ban on bump stocks, and a Supreme Court decision just of yesterday. I'll stop there, but I would not be at all worried right now if I had a forced reset trigger. And even though it's different than a bump stock, the court's analysis definitely helps. ATF would be really hard-pressed trying to do any rulemaking or much less prosecute somebody saying that a forced reset trigger made their gun a machine gun. Not going to happen. The question we had from the caller about does the Bruen decision, and the Bruen decision factors into what I started to go into on the Hunter Biden case. Bruen decision, which was actually regarding the New York State prohibition on carrying a handgun, except under very, very limited circumstances. And particularly in New York City had its own limitations. And the Supreme Court set that aside. And in doing so, they defined a new test for constitutionality. And this bears directly on the Hunter Biden discussion and why I think he's got a real shot on appeal. Because there used to be sort of this balancing test. You looked at whether there was a compelling state interest in the particular gun control law at issue. Then you looked at the degree of infringement, how much of an impact on a core constitutional freedom were we talking about? And then there was sort of this balancing that went on. And it really allowed courts to uphold gun control laws all across the country when they probably shouldn't have been able to. And the Supreme Court totally threw that out. So no, we don't do this balancing BS anymore. What we now do is we look at three things: text, history, and tradition. So text, what does the constitutional amendment say? In this case, what's the Second Amendment say? What rights does it protect? And the Heller decision from 2008 largely defined that. Second Amendment protects the ability to keep and bear bearable arms that are commonly used for lawful purposes. And in that case, specifically said handguns fall in that category. So commonly used for lawful purposes. They gave us that test. So you look at that, and that's the scope of the protection. Then under the Bruen test, it went on to say, what's the scope of the protection? Then you look at history and tradition on gun control laws in this country. And is there a history and tradition? And this goes back to the time of the founding and when the Second Amendment was ratified in 1791. And then you can also look at 1868 in that time frame, because that's when the 14th Amendment was ratified, which makes the Second Amendment applicable to the states. So in looking at those issues, is there a historical analog, or are there historical analogs, similar statutes, similar laws that were deemed to be acceptable, deemed to be constitutional back in those two time frames? And again, going back to the time of the founding. And if there's not a history and tradition of similar regulation, then that law is unconstitutional. And that actually takes us back, and well, let me finish answering David's questions. Do suppressors fall in that category? Does that help us? Listen, I own multiple suppressors. I love shooting with a suppressor. Suppressors are addicting. You start shooting with a suppressor, I mean, they lessen recoil, they lessen muzzle flash, and they dramatically lessen noise. The report of a firearm, as we say. And listen, it is a myth that a suppressor makes a gun sound like they do in the movies, where it sounds like that's not it at all. They take the sound of a typical gunshot. It dramatically differs depending on caliber and barrel length and other issues. But a typical firearm, let's say it discharges, noise is about 160 decibels, which is damn loud. It takes that down to about 130 decibels, which is still loud. I mean, that's basically the sound of a chainsaw running. I mean, that's not quiet. That's why when we talk about a particularly effective suppressor, the terminology we use will say it's almost movie quiet. That's what we're talking about. It's almost down to that, that you hear in the movies. But would suppressors be deemed to be commonly used for lawful purposes? Man, more common all the time. But they've been so tightly regulated under the NFA as an item regulated by the National Firearms Act since 1934. Are they commonly used for lawful purposes? Now, I have more than one. I'd like to have more. So are they protected by the Second Amendment at all? That's test number one. Test number two, going back to the founding, are there analogs of regulating firearms that or regulating accessories that simply diminish the sound of a firearm? I doubt it. I think the real struggle there would be whether suppressors are protected by the Second Amendment to begin with, based on whether or not they're commonly used for lawful purposes. And again, why were suppressors caught up in the NFA that dealt with machine guns and short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns? I think it was because in 1934, Congress got caught up with Hollywood and the gangster movies, and they feared there were going to be these, gangster assassins sneaking through windows and performing assassinations with, suppressed firearms and evading capture on that basis. I think it was a lot based on myth and Hollywood, a lot more than it was whether suppressors really were being used in crimes and facilitated criminal acts. I don't believe that for a heartbeat. I don't think there's any support for that historically. And it shows you how backward we are in this country. England, the UK, as incredibly restricted as UK is on gun rights. There are places in England where you can't shoot a gun, like for hunting, for instance, unless you use a suppressor. They require you to use a suppressor. Why? Because a suppressor makes you a good neighbor. It also dramatically protects your hearing. Now, some guns, even with a suppressor on them, are not hearing safe. Again, depending on caliber, barrel length, but others are. I have a 300 Blackout SBR with a really nice Saker Silencer Co. suppressor. And that's the one I kid around about being almost movie quiet. And it is definitely hearing safe with, at shooting, especially shooting subs. That is particularly quiet ammunition that is fired below the speed of sound, so you don't get that rifle crack. So you're shooting subsonic ammunition with a suppressor. It's fabulous. But are they protected at all under the Second Amendment? I think that's where the challenge would be. So I took way much more time with that than I intended to. We'll get back into the hunters issue. Then I want to tell you what the Supreme Court did on bump stocks, and then tell you what a court in Texas did on pistol braces. All good news for gun owners when we come back. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Kendall and Casey.
Okay, so you ever go into Cracker Barrel and think,
who are the old-timey photos? That's a great question. They're just a stock of some Cracker Barrel warehouse where it's like, we have 93 photos of Maud from Santa Fe, New Mexico, sitting on a porch.
Right, store 78 needs something in the left wing. Ship it out.
Kendall and Casey, weekdays 9 till noon on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. We've got our next Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class coming up on Saturday, August 17th. It's going to be from 9 a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. at Indy Arms. They're at 2550 East 55th Street in Indianapolis. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. This is 4.5 to 5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner. We'd love to see you there. Coming up on August 17th, you can sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
From marshmallow festivals to fireworks on the shore. No matter where you're headed this summer, Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles. During Hubler's Freedom to Drive, shop any of our 12 locations and choose from Chevys, Fords, GMCs, Buicks, Nissans, Acuras, Mazdas, Hondas, and many more. Over 2,000 vehicles. All makes, all models, certified vehicles, luxury vehicles, even the hard-to-find ones. Plus, every Hubler Q-certified vehicle is covered by a 128-point vehicle inspection and a free Carfax history report.
'Cause Hubler's got you covered.
No matter where you're headed this summer, Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles. During our Freedom to Drive, visit drivehubler.com or any of our 12 locations.
Cover me!
Warranty on select models less than 9 years old.
Whatever happened to Tony Horton, the guy who created the revolutionary P90X?
2017, I was knocked down. A very rare type of shingles that went straight into my brain. My body was completely wasting away. I started researching everything related to building my muscle back again. That's when I learned about the potential of HMB plus vitamin D3 and what they can do when it comes to helping build new muscle.
So Tony developed high-impact protein by Power Life.
Just add 1 scoop of high-impact protein to a glass of water or your morning smoothie and enjoy the effects of that boss molecule and factory worker combination. reshaping your body each and every day. More energy, burn more fat, and probably drop a few pounds along the way.
High Impact Protein by Power Life is a tasty once-a-day powder that comes in either whey or plant protein. Go to mypowerlife.com and use code TONE to save 30%. Tony even offers a 90-day guarantee. Go to mypowerlife.com or text TONE to 511-511. Text TONE to 511-511 today. All individuals are unique. Your results can and will vary. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Tax fees may apply.
Close your eyes and picture it. The warm sun on your face. The sound of waves lapping against the shore. What if I told you that feeling of summer relaxation could be yours all year round? At Howard Bailey Financial, we specialize in retirement planning that lets you embrace that summer state of mind every day. Imagine knowing that your future is secure. With our expert advisors, we'll craft a personalized retirement plan tailored to your dreams. Whether it's traveling the world or pursuing your passions, we'll ensure that your retirement is as carefree and fulfilling as a relaxing summer afternoon. Embrace a summer state of mind and text SUMMER to 888-494-5004 to download our complimentary retirement toolkit and experience your retirement planning with confidence.
This endorsement was not provided by a client of Howard Bailey. This individual was compensated for this endorsement. For more information, visit howardbailey.com/TS1.
Planes, trains, automobiles, and motorcycles. If you've spent a lot of time working or playing around loud vehicles, you may have trouble hearing on the telephone. Get back in gear with Relay Indiana, providing telephone accessibility to the hard of hearing. Relay Indiana allows hearing-impaired callers to have normal phone conversations through voice recognition technology. And there's loaned equipment for those who qualify. Add clarity back in your phone conversations. Get the CapTel captioned telephone from Relay Indiana. Visit RelayIndiana.com.
We're all different. 1 in 5 of us live with a mental illness. Don't filter who you are. Talk to someone you trust. Learn more at bringchangetomind.org.
Find the path to recovery that works for you. Learn more at cdc.gov/stopoverdose.
Now you've got a gun guy. Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So why do I say that Hunter Biden has a decent shot on appeal? And why do I say that some gun rights advocates are likely to be rooting for him on appeal? You don't have a lot of Biden supporters who are big 2A advocates, I wouldn't think. You wouldn't have a lot of Democrats generally. Although that's something that I'll talk about in future shows, and a direction I think the NRA really ought to take under new leadership. That's a discussion for another day. But Hunter was convicted, again, on 3 charges. Lying on a form, 2 charges related to that. When he bought a gun, saying he was not a user of or addicted to illegal drugs, and then separately possessing a gun as someone who is prohibited from possessing a gun because he's a user of or addicted to illegal drugs. And the trial court, as I mentioned before the last break, had ruled that the prosecution didn't have to prove that he was actually high on drugs or had used drugs at the time he bought the gun, but just in that general time frame. Well, how does that actually help Hunter on appeal? Well, here's how. It's because under the test history and tradition test that I just went through with a caller, the government now on appeal is going to have to find historical analogs to the idea that someone who, say, habitually uses drugs or even habitually becomes intoxicated, but is not intoxicated at the time they obtain a firearm or possess a firearm, that historically there were laws that supported prohibiting that person from possessing a firearm, even when they were not actually high or intoxicated. And listen, I think going back, and I've not done this historical research, is something that would take weeks and weeks and weeks. And I'm sure there are big law firms working on this right now on behalf of Hunter. And the prosecution's looking at it too. The U.S. Attorney's Office there in Delaware and Department of Justice generally. I would speculate, and I have seen examples of laws back at the time of the founding that said, you can separate a drunkard from his gun. And I think generally speaking, you're going to find laws along those lines. But what if, and again, and I'm equating drugs and alcohol here, And I think the courts would blend those two together to some degree, because it doesn't have to match up. To be consistent with history and tradition, I think they're going to look generally at intoxication and intoxicants in terms of drugs and alcohol. I think that's likely. I recognize the distinctions, believe me. Well, some are legal, some are illegal. I totally understand what you're saying. But for instance, if there are laws that made it illegal to possess a firearm while you're drunk, then I think a court would say, well, that's a good analog to the idea that you can't possess a firearm while you're high on drugs. That would support the government. Even though they're different, I think that would help the government on history and tradition. But that's not what they have to find in terms of text, history, and tradition. Text, Hunter gets that. He has the right, protected by the Second Amendment, to possess a handgun, the handgun that he bought. Question then becomes, does a law making it illegal for him, Hunter Biden, to possess a firearm, is that consistent with the history and tradition of a regulation of firearms in this country? And it's going to be much, much harder to make the argument that, yes, historically in this country, laws were upheld that allowed the government to separate people from their guns, not because they were high, not because they were intoxicated, not because they're drunk, because they generally were in the habit of doing so. In the general time frame when they possessed a firearm, that is a much tougher row to hoe. And I think it's going to be fascinating, for instance, that if you get a decision, whether it's an appellate court or like the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, which is where this first appeal will be on Hunter Biden's case coming out of federal court in Delaware, or, whether ultimately it goes up to the Supreme Court. It'll be up to the Supreme Court whether they'd ever want to take it. But I think ultimately that is going to be an interesting decision, and you could ultimately see the expansion of gun rights in terms of people who, yes, may generally use drugs. And by the way, there's a case involving marijuana that the litigants are trying to take to the Supreme Court right now, saying a guy wasn't high on marijuana. He got pulled over, admitted to using marijuana generally, and was arrested and prosecuted on that basis. And there being an opportunity for the courts to rule on that issue even before Hunter Biden's case gets resolved. So all that's going to be very interesting. When we come back, I want to get into what the Supreme Court did on bump stocks. Just yesterday, they struck down the ban on bump stocks. What was that ban? What does this mean? How is that beneficial? I got into this a little bit with the caller who asked me about forced reset triggers. What was the basis of it? Did the court find that the ban on bump stocks violated the Second Amendment? We'll get into all of that, and we'll talk about what a federal district court did in the Northern District of Texas on pistol braces. And this is big because they didn't just say that they were prohibiting ATF from enforcing it there in their jurisdiction in the Northern District of Texas. They did something much, much broader than that, which could be a big, big deal depending on how it works its way through the appellate process. Right now, we're taking a break at the bottom of the hour. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Hammer and Nigel.
Alec Baldwin and his wife and their 7 kids are going to star in a new reality show on TLC.
Alec Baldwin, to this very day, has still killed more people than anybody that stormed into the United States Capitol on January 6th. That is a fact. And he's getting a reality show? It's disgusting.
Hammer and Nigel, weekdays 3 till 7 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Introducing Lumi for Men, and we named him Mando. American-made, doctor-developed, clinically proven whole-body deodorant. Built for men, built for hard work. I'm Dr. Shannon Klingman, the inventor of Mando whole-body deodorant for pits, packages, and feet. Because we all know our pits aren't the only place we get odor. Mando whole-body deodorant is different from anything you've ever tried before. It stops odor before it starts, powered by our acidified technology. Mando controls odor anywhere you have it. My patented whole-body deodorant formula has over 200,000 5-star reviews. And because Mando has a 60-day stink-free guarantee, you can try Mando risk-free.
There's a special offer for listeners. Use code 4040 and get an extra $5 off a Mando starter pack that comes with a solid stick, cream tube, 2 free products of your choice, and ships free with code 4040. Go to shopmando.com, code 4040, for an extra $5 off a Mando starter pack. That's shopmando.com, code 4040.
Go with your gut. Your dog's immune system is based in the gut. A diet lacking in nutrients can cause itching, scratching, and a weak immune system. However, there is a solution. DINOVITE, Dinovite.
It took a grand total of 2 weeks. The dog stopped itching, the hair stopped falling out.
Try Dinovite for free. Just pay shipping and handling. Learn more at dinovite.com/radio.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dinovite.
My husband, Bob, has Parkinson's, and he needs more help now, and I need more support to help him. Thanks to Indiana Pathways for Aging, we're getting the support we need to help him right here at home, like with meal prep and basic personal care, and even respite support for me.
Pathways provides Hoosier Medicaid members, age 60 and over, support for care their way, so they can live life their way. To learn more, eligible members call 87 Pathway 4 or visit in.gov/pathways.
Fox News, I'm Ann Carrick. The president is back from the G7 summit in Italy and ready to mingle for money at a high-profile Hollywood fundraiser. Fox's Lucas Tomlinson reports.
The headliners at tonight's fundraiser, former President Barack Obama, George Clooney, Julia Roberts, and Jimmy Kimmel. Fox has told $28 million has already been collected.
Protesters are expected at the venue. Vice President Harris went to Switzerland on the president's behalf, attending a peace summit for Ukraine and promising more support from the U.S. Former President Trump is in Michigan just 2 weeks before the first debate with President Biden.
This is very much being called a roundtable, and those in line, they tell me they want to hear what the president has to say. It's a community conversation, if you will, so very different from his typical campaign speeches.
Fox's Madison Allworth in Detroit. America is listening to Fox News.
911, what's your emergency?
In an emergency, voice is best. But what if you can't call?
Escalated domestic disturbance reported east of downtown. Be advised, alert was received by a 911 emergency text. Caller is hiding in a closet and can't use her voice.
When the situation is too dangerous to make a call, text to 911 Capability Now helps Hoosiers. But in most emergencies, voice is still best.
My sister's not breathing. Please hurry.
In the last 5 years, Hoosiers have used text capability in over 1 million 911 sessions. It's of great help to the deaf and speech impaired and to those in select dangerous situations. Thanks to the statewide 911 board, Indiana leads the nation with all 92 counties having in- and outbound text capability. For more, visit in911.net.
It's good to hear your voice. Help is on the way.
911. Before you text, voice is best.
JMV here. Father's Day is Sunday. Miss M's Home and Garden has great items for you or dad. And listen to what you can save while shopping. Herbaceous perennials are 20% off. Pottery, fountains, statues, and houseplants, 30% off. Select gift shop decor is 20 to 50% off. And get this, Japanese maples in stock are 50% off. Dad will thank you for getting him great items that will last for years to come. Miss M's Home and Garden, State Road 135 south of Whiteland Road in Bargersville.
If your wedding anniversary is approaching, that means a visit to Barrington Jewels in Clearwater Crossing. You must see the truly one-of-a-kind creations at Barrington. You'll find exquisite and unique anniversary bands at great prices and with special financing available. Save time and effort and shop Barrington Jewels first. Consider upgrading her diamond, a truly special way to show your love. Plus, Swiss and German brand sport watches. Don't wait. Get to Barrington Jewels today. And remember, you haven't seen a diamond until you've seen a Barrington diamond.
Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So the Supreme Court ruled in a gun case yesterday. And it's funny, I got some messages, social media, emails and whatnot, saying, I understand there's a big new Second Amendment case out of the Supreme Court today. And the honest response to that, the most accurate response to that is that the Supreme Court's decision on bump stocks isn't actually a Second Amendment decision. And you may be scratching your head going, what the hell is this guy talking about? But this involves bump stocks. And if you know what a bump stock is, bump stock's a device you attach to your firearm, typically a rifle, and they can replace the typical shoulder stock. I've seen others that sort of fit over a shoulder stock. But essentially what they do is they allow a gun to bounce off your shoulder. And if you maintain a consistent pressure on the foregrip, as you pull the trigger and then keep your trigger finger rigid, as the gun bounces off of your shoulder, really caused by the recoil, but facilitated by the bump stock. If you're just holding your trigger finger rigid, as the gun bounces back and forth off your shoulder, coming back with recoil, coming back forward with the pressure you're exerting on the gun, then the gun continues to fire, and it fires very quickly. But importantly, and this was the whole basis of the Supreme Court's decision, the trigger had to get pulled for each shot. Well, what happened after the Las Vegas mass shooting, again, the worst mass shooting in U.S. history, after a whole bunch of people died in a horrible tragedy, a demented lunatic breaks out windows in the Mandalay Bay Hotel and was shooting down on a country music festival across the street. And I've stayed in the Mandalay Bay. I stayed in Mandalay Bay when I was taking training at what was then called Front Sight Firearms Training Academy outside Vegas, about an hour outside of Las Vegas. I've rolled multiple gun cases through the lobby and the casino on the way to my room in the Mandalay Bay. But this guy killed a whole bunch of people, and allegedly, reportedly, although the government has been incredibly tight-lipped about that case, we still don't know squat about that shooter, about what his motives were, about almost all the details of that shooting. We know probably as little about that shooting as any mass shooting in U.S. history, and there's got to be a reason. And I'm not a big conspiracy theory person, but there's something odd going on with that shooting, and there's a reason we haven't heard any more specifics on that shooting. But immediately after, because this guy supposedly used a bump stock, and if you heard the video or heard the audio that was part of the video that was released, it sounds like a fully automatic firearm. And still, to this day, I will tell you, it does not sound like a firearm being fired with a bump stock. It sounds like a fully automatic belt-fed machine gun is what it sounds like to me. And I've had a lot of other people, a lot more experience around belt-fed machine guns who come to me and said exactly the same thing after they heard me express that opinion. But for the sake of the discussion, let's say it's a bump stock. Well, it was reportedly a bump stock. That's what we're hearing in the media. And so President Trump at the time said, oh, well, and I remember the news conference. He said, bump stocks are gone. Because people are asking him about bump stocks. He goes, oh, don't worry about bump stocks. Bump stocks are gone. And President Trump went to the ATF and said, make these things illegal. I mean, he wasn't shy about saying that that's exactly what he was doing. The NRA posted on social media and communicated directly to ATF and said, we invite the ATF to revisit the legality of bump stocks. The NRA did that. In fact, NRA, that cost them a lot of credibility with a lot of gun owners. They have new leadership now. I'm going to talk about that probably next week here on the Gun Guy Show, and I hope that NRA is able to recover its membership, recover its credibility. And we have some new members of the board of directors from right here in Indiana that I like and respect, and I'm hoping it can really take them in a new direction. They have a new executive vice president. Wayne LaPierre is gone. But NRA came out in addition to President Trump dictating the whole thing. NRA came out and jumped on board with banning bump stocks. That's what the ATF do. ATF essentially passes a new regulation that says the way it interprets the definition of machine gun, that bump stocks are considered machine guns. And what's the rule on bump stocks? Or excuse me, what's the rule on machine guns? Well, a machine gun, which by the way is defined as a firearm which will fire more than one round automatically with a single function of the trigger. So you pull the trigger back, that's all you do, hold it back, the gun continues to fire automatically. That's the definition. Under the National Firearms Act, machine guns are regulated under the NFA, and you can't possess one unless you pay the tax, you pay the $200 for the tax stamp and register it under the NFA. And in 1986, as part of what was ostensibly called the Firearm Owners Protection Act in 1986, there was an amendment to that we call the Hughes Amendment, where they came in, and a lot of people blame the NRA for this as well. This was a compromise. They wanted other things like a safe passage provision, some other parts that they were looking for. So what they did is they traded off machine guns. And it says that any machine gun not registered or manufactured and registered as of, I think it was April 1986, can't be registered, manufactured, or imported, at least not for civilian use after the fact. So that's why there are transferable machine guns out there, meaning they were registered for civilian use by a registrant prior to the enactment of FOPA in 1986. That's why machine guns are incredibly expensive. You find a fully automatic M16 or a Thompson submachine gun or a fully automatic AK-47. You find one that was registered prior to 1986, so it's transferable. The $200 tax stamp's the least of your expense because you're going to pay $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 depending on condition, because they're rare. And if it wasn't registered before 1986, you can't do it at all. Bump stocks didn't come into existence until well after that. So if bump stocks are machine guns, or bump stocks make your gun a machine gun, because, by the way, included within the definition of machine gun is any device useful only for converting a gun to a machine gun. That's why the so-called Glock switches are also illegal, historically under federal law, more recently under Indiana law as well. So there's no way you could register your bump stock, pay the $200 or whatever, because they were all made too late. So Trump's direction to ATF and the new regulation by ATF basically banned bump stocks. And I said at the time, and I've been saying ever since, that listen, I don't care much about bump stocks. I think bump stocks are stupid. People will come to my range historically when I ran Eagle Creek Pistol Range. Somebody shows up with a bump stock, I'm going to make fun of them. And I'm probably not going to let them shoot it unless they can demonstrate for me off by themselves on another part of the range that they can do so safely. Because I'm not going to let them endanger anybody else at the range. Because what you're doing is you're trading accuracy for rate of fire. And unless you're in a zombie apocalypse, that doesn't make much sense to me. That's why I think they're stupid. I would never have a bump stock on one of my rifles. But I was absolutely incensed, if not upset, when Trump did what he did to cause the ATF to ban bump stocks. Why? Because you're taking an agency, an executive agency, and you're having them do what Congress should be required to do. Congress defined what a machine gun is. And for the ATF to pass a regulation that says, well, you know, a device that makes a semi-automatic kind of sort of like a machine gun, well, that makes it a machine gun. And obviously that's not exactly what it said, but that's how it absolutely has to be interpreted. It's close enough, so it's a machine gun, because it shoots really fast now. And there were all these weird arguments. Well, when you pull the trigger once, you don't have to pull the trigger again because the gun bounces back and forth, and it essentially bounces off your trigger finger, and the gun keeps shooting. So you really only had to pull the trigger once to start the sequence. But the statute didn't speak in terms of one action of your finger. It talked about one function of the trigger, and the trigger has to be pulled for each shot. That's why a bump stock on a semi-automatic firearm doesn't change a semi-automatic to an automatic or a machine gun. And that's exactly what the Supreme Court said yesterday. But the entire opinion, and Clarence Thomas wrote the opinion, it's 18 pages long. I read the whole thing. And what's interesting is it's not about the Second Amendment. The court did not rule that the ban on bump stocks violated the Second Amendment. This is under the Administrative Procedures Act, which basically says executive agencies can only do what they're authorized to do, and they're only allowed to interpret to some degree the words of Congress. They can't change the words of Congress. They can't exceed their authority by changing the law as defined by Congress. And so it's not a Second Amendment case. In fact, what's really interesting, the first Supreme Court decision I've ever seen where there are all these diagrams. There's a diagram that says this is a hammer and this is a disconnector and this is the trigger and here's how a semi-automatic gun functions. And Clarence Thomas lays all this out in this opinion. And there are literally specifications, there are diagrams of firearms laid out in this thing to say what the ATF tried to say, which is this gun will fire continuously with one manipulation of the trigger, is just mechanically and factually incorrect. And for that reason, they misinterpreted and in fact changed the words of Congress, and under the Administrative Procedures Act, they can't do that. And that's why I told the caller earlier on the show, for someone, for their ATF, for instance, say, well, forced reset triggers or binary triggers are kind of sort of like machine guns because they make a gun fire really fast. This opinion blows that up. In addition, there are arguments out there in support of an assault weapon ban, banning semi-automatic firearms like the AR-15, AK-47, etc. They say, well, they're close enough to machine guns. And this is taking some language really out of context out of the Heller decision. They're close enough to machine guns that we ought to be able to ban all assault weapons because the Supreme Court says we can. Well, this decision in the case yesterday from the Supreme Court, this is the Cargill case that the court just decided yesterday, draws a very clear distinction between semi-automatic and automatic. And that does not help those people that want to lump them all together and say we ought to be able to ban the most commonly owned rifles in America, like the AR-15, because they're kind of sort of like machine guns. Supreme Court decision yesterday does not help those people at all. We're going to stop it there. We come back. I'm going to get into what I've been getting a lot of contacts, a lot of calls on, a lot of social media messages. What did this court in Texas do on pistol braces? And what does it mean if you own or want to own a pistol brace? That's what we'll get into when we come back. Sky Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
It's another week of this.
Trump guilty verdict. Unclear if Trump's status on Indiana's ballot will be challenged.
And another day for this.
Dark day for our country.
Plus, another possibility of this.
Hunter Biden charged with 3 felony counts of lying.
That's why. Another update is coming up at the top and bottom of the hour.
Here's what's happening in the real world.
Just another day. Not with all this happening every day.
We take another historic step.
93.
To stay informed.
WIBC.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. Our next Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class. This is 4.5 to 5 hours. The most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner. Coming up August 17th. That's a Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. Sometimes we finish closer to 1:30, but it's going to be at Indy Arms, located at 2550 East 55th Street. Beautiful indoor range, great gun shop, and it's a great place to come take a class in a nice, big, comfortable classroom. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. That's Essentials of Indiana Gun Law. We'd love to see you there on August 17th. You can register at tactical-firearms.com or click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
A slow network is no network for business. That's why more choose Comcast Business. And now we're introducing Ultimate Speed for Business, our fastest plans yet. We're up to 12 times faster than Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. And existing customers could even get up to triple the speeds at no additional cost. All from the company with 99.9% network reliability and advanced cybersecurity. It's Ultimate Speed from Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Don't miss out on our fastest speed plans yet. Get started with internet and security for $49 a month for 12 months with a 2-year contract when you add one unlimited mobile line. Plus, ask how to get up to an $800 prepaid card with a qualifying gig bundle. Call 1-800-501-6000 or visit ComcastBusiness.com to switch today. In 62324, restrictions apply. New customers only with 300 megabits per second internet and security edge. EcoBell and autopay required. Equipment, tax, and fees extra. Compares Comcast Business 1.25 gig to 100 megabit per second 5G internet at Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. Up to 3 times downloads for existing essential and standard customers.
That's the sound of steak searing in its juices on your new pellet grill. You heard that right. The Weber Searwood Pellet Grill can smoke low and slow at 180 degrees all the way to a high heat sear at 600. With the Weber Searwood, you can cook on the direct flame over the full grate sear zone. You'll hear the gasp of amazement from friends and family when you serve the food. Cooking with the Weber Searwood Pellet Grill just sounds delicious and tastes even better.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the third time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
Nobody cares for you like family. Family Heating and Air.
We set out to be the very best of the best, and the past couple of years we've actually achieved that. For all of the state of Indiana, we've been awarded the Dealer of the Year award twice now. Unlike other brands, that only gets handed to one dealer every year, and we're very proud to have won that twice.
Put the best to work for you at FamilyHVAC.net. Family Heating and Air is your trusted local independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through HIMS, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
Addiction. It's hard on those who struggle with it, but those who love the addict need support too. Matt Baer and Ryan Hedrick provide help and hope with Supporting Sobriety. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on WIPC.com. The show about gun rights, gun safety, and responsible gun ownership. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIPC.
And welcome back for the last segment here of the Gun Guy Show here tonight. Another big decision, and a lot of people are interested in this because a lot of people, I mean millions of people, have put a pistol brace or installed a pistol brace on their pistol. And what are we talking about here? Well, if you have a pistol length firearm, it's like an AR pistol or an AK pistol, and if it doesn't have a shoulder stock on it, historically, then that's only a pistol. So it can have a barrel less than 16 inches long, and you don't have to register it under the NFA, the National Firearms Act, as a short-barreled rifle. And pistol braces came out a number of years ago, I'd say, 12, 14 years ago, came out, and really they were designed as an attachment to your pistol, and it's got an attachment that will essentially allow you to strap it over the top of your forearm to allow you to shoot it one-handed and be a lot more stable, thus the term pistol stabilizing brace. But a lot of people started using these as shoulder stocks. Instead of strapping the end of it over their forearm, they would just put it against their shoulder and use it like a stock. And it was a way around registering your firearm as an SPR. And this was submitted to ATF like 10, 11, 12 years ago. And they said, hey, is this legal? Can we put one of these on our pistol and not convert it to a rifle, therefore have to register it as a short-barreled rifle? And ATF said, oh, yeah, that's fine. Doesn't convert a pistol into a rifle, so it doesn't make it a short-barreled rifle, so you don't have to register it and pay your $200. And what happened is, once that ruling came out, and a little time, as gun owners, we can be a little too cute sometimes. Manufacturers start coming out with a ton of these things. And, you know, they started looking more and more like stocks. They were still supposedly braces and therefore illegal. But this went on, and again, millions of these things sold. I've seen estimates anywhere from 4 million to 40 million of these things being used out there. And I kept saying, man, the pendulum's going to swing back. We're being a little too cute here because it's just a way of getting around the SBR statute, the SBR registration requirement. Well, what happened? Well, here a year or so ago, the ATF comes out and says, well, we're doing a 180. We're doing a 180. We changed our minds. If you put a stabilizing brace on your pistol, it's now an SBR. And they offered, for some limited number of weeks, they offered an amnesty period where you could register them without paying the $200. You didn't get a tax stamp, but you had a legal SBR. Well, that was challenged. It's been going through the courts. And interesting, just like the bump stock case that came out yesterday out of the Supreme Court, a case in Texas now has said, and it's the same thing, it's under the Administrative Procedures Act. And they said there that the final rule that the ATF came out with was so different than the proposed rule they came out with the first time. And it's impermissibly vague because nobody can really figure out what the hell it means and when your gun's an SBR and when's it's not. They not only found that it violated the Administrative Procedures Act and was therefore illegal, they also found that it was unconstitutionally vague. But on that reason, they vacated the rule, vacated it. ATF cannot enforce it. Big deal, big deal. Talk to you next week. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Premier Deck Coating, the ultimate deck protection. Who are they? Well, they're a sister company of Rhino Shield, and Premier Deck Coating is the product you need if you're tired of applying the same old stain and paint every couple of years.